I've got to start with this investigation into the assassination attempt of President Trump. I was flabbergasted, floored, and all, and whatever other words you can come up with, when we saw Christopher Wray allege or insinuate that Trump might not have been shot. Almost immediately, the FBI itself backtracked on that, and Ronnie Jackson said, of course he was shot. We all saw him get shot. What do you think that was? Is Christopher Wray just inept, or was he trying to cause some question there?
I think what they try to do, the deep state, they try to provoke Trump. They try to get him mad. They knew that would make him mad. They're petty, and they've made horrible decisions, and they've destroyed the reputation of the FBI and all the CIA and all the Department of Justice and all the deep state agencies. They've destroyed their reputation because their number one priority is ensuring that Donald Trump doesn't win. They've done everything they could do to obstruct investigations of the Bidens. They've done everything they could do to enhance and incite investigations against Donald Trump. And when all that failed, they want to do something. They think, well, we'll get him mad. We'll make him talk. I believe he did it because he knew that Donald Trump would be furious, which he was, when he would imply that they didn't know for sure whether that was a bullet or shrapnel.
It's sick. That's the game. Let's incite Donald Trump, which of course does work. You're right. It made him mad. But Trump, I think, has shown he is way smarter, now 8 years later than he was in 16. Not that he was dumb, but he's smarter in how he handles these things. The fact that he was quiet during most of that debate on June 27th ended Joe Biden's political career. Had he jumped in and been Trump that can be easily provoked, I think it might not have gone so well. I mean, honestly, being quiet was he seems to, and again, I love Donald Trump. I've had him on 14 times. I know him personally. But there's something different in this guy, don't you think? This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. If you're not familiar with a VPN, listen up. This is really important. Your ISP, your internet service provider, can see every website you go to, can see where you're browsing, what movies you're watching, who you're communicating with, and they get to keep all that stuff. And later, the government can ask them about it. So instead of even dealing with that, you've got to get a VPN. I use Private Internet Access, PIA, and I want you to do so as well. It connects very, very quickly. It completely cloaks where you are, who you are, what you're doing. If you want to go on Netflix and you see some movie that's blocked in your region, you can change the region. You can actually do this with just a press of a simple button. It doesn't feel like you've done anything, and the speeds are lightning fast. Click on the link in the description. Go there right now and get yourself private internet access. It's cheap. It's easy. It'll keep you protected. And you ever go to like McDonald's or to maybe a Starbucks or something, and you sit down to use their internet, you press this button. It still keeps you safe from everybody else who's on that internet. Go right now. Check out private internet access. You'll be glad you did. Now back to the video.
I do. I think he's shown a lot more restraint. I think he's learned a lot of lessons. Look, America wanted an outsider. They wanted someone to come in and drain the swamp, to disrupt Washington, and he did that. Along the way, he probably made a few little mistakes here and there that alienated certain people. I think he's learned from that. Hopefully, America sees that, you may not like Donald Trump personality, you may not like some of the things he says, but he's a great leader. And his policies work. And what we've got now is absolutely in the worst interest of the working class Americans. So hopefully everyone will come to their senses this November and reelect Donald Trump to be president.
Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, it's Jamie Comer, the District 1 Republican, great state of Kentucky. Do you guys actually get to do oversight or not? And now, again, I've seen you in action. I've seen Jordan in action. You guys are great. I mean, what you're trying to do is great, but I say try because I thought that you literally had oversight, but these agencies are able to say nothing. These appointees are able to say nothing. These, DOJ people say nothing. They'll sit there and say, I can't because it'll give away the investigation. I can't comment because the investigation, I can't comment because of methods. And what are you talking about? Do you guys actually get to do oversight, or is it just as frustrating as I feel it is watching?
It's as frustrating as you feel it is watching. If you watch that hearing with Kimberly Cheadle, where she didn't answer a deadgum question, that was symbolic of what we go through with government agencies in the Biden administration. Now, if we subpoena someone in the private sector, a bank, for example, they turn over what we request. And in the Biden investigation, we got all the information about the LLCs, about the bank accounts, bank records, things like that, because they honored our subpoenas. But when we would try to subpoena something from the Biden administration, they wouldn't provide it. and it ends up in court, and they stall and stall and stall, and they're watching the clock. They know December 31st, this Congress expires, and our subpoena will essentially expire. If the courts don't rule before December 31st, then I have to issue, if we're even in the majority next time, which they hope we're not, a new subpoena. So the government, the deep state, the Biden administration, they know exactly how to obstruct oversight. And that's what they've done. And every American should be offended by that, because the Oversight Committee was created. Abraham Lincoln was on what would today be the Oversight Committee in his one term in Congress. It's always been in place to be a check and balance on our government, but there is no check and balance with the Biden administration. The media is supposed to be a check and balance, Congress, the courts, but this administration, just like what they did with student loan ruling, they just do what they want. And the only way to change it is at the ballot box this November and get rid of all these liberal Democrats in the Biden-Harris administration.
Congressman, are we going to get a real investigation into what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania under this DOJ, or is it going to take until Trump gets back in office and replace all these idiots?
I don't have any confidence in the FBI. The FBI is doing the investigating of the shooter. There's going to be a task force that the speaker appointed today that will investigate what went wrong in Pennsylvania. I think it's pretty obvious what went wrong. So that's not going to be a hard investigation. You know, the Secret Service wasn't communicating. There was a breakdown in communication. They didn't have snipers where they needed. They didn't cover the high grounds. You know, that's pretty obvious what went wrong there. So that's not going to be complicated. What's going to be controversial is, what's the story on this shooter? Who was he communicating with in foreign countries? Where did he get these overseas accounts? Was he the lone shooter? Did he make those bombs himself? You know, this is the question that we're having to rely on the FBI, because they went in and destroyed after they looked at the crime scene, they cleaned the crime scene off. They took everything with them. They're the ones that have the authority to go after those overseas accounts and to get their emails and things like that. If I issued a subpoena for any of that, we would lose in court, because they would say the FBI is investigating that. So unfortunately, I have no confidence in Christopher Wray or Merrick Garland. So we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't put a lot of confidence in their final ruling.
Right. And here's the problem. If we're not getting any information out of them, and you guys are trying your best in the Oversight Committee to get it, then we, the American people, start hearing about conspiracies. There's a second shooter who was on the water tower. This guy communicated with Mars. I mean, you've got all sorts of garbage out there, and we really do rely on the people that we elect to represent us, and you're doing a great job with that, but you're one guy, to try to get the real information. How are you going to get the real information from a guy like Merrick Garland, who won't even give the audio tapes of the Her investigation, when he didn't have any executive privilege to not give it to you because he gave you the transcript? How can we trust a guy who will not do what he's been subpoenaed to do and thumbs his nose at you guys?
You can't do it. We held Merrick Garland in contempt. We subpoenaed Merrick Garland. It's in court to get those Her tapes. And this is the reason I want the Her tapes. A lot of Republicans go on TV and they say, oh, we want the Her tapes because it'll embarrass Joe Biden. Look, that ship sailed. Joe Biden's already embarrassed. He was embarrassed after the debate. The reason I want those tapes is I want to see if Merrick Garland lied about the transcripts, because I believe that there's a good possibility that Merrick Garland left things out or added or edited the transcript, and the tapes will be able to prove. We can match the tapes with the transcript to see if they altered or edited the transcripts. And if they did, that says a lot about Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice. That would help us in court going up against them on all this information we requested. If we can prove that Merrick Garland lied when he said, okay, we gave you, Congress, the transcript, that was the same thing. But if he changed the transcript, if he edited it, altered it, whatever you want to call it, then I think that destroys their credibility in court.
And that would be a federal crime, would it not? If you altered, official documents.
100%.
It's crazy to me, because we see him claiming executive privilege, though Navarro just got out of prison. Bannon's still in prison for claiming executive privilege. Those two literally were having conversations with the then president, who has claimed executive privilege, and therefore they didn't have to answer a subpoena to a falsely created January 6th committee. It wasn't even created by the rules of the House. Why are they cooling their heels in prison? One is out now, while Merrick Garland continues to collect a paycheck from me.
Yeah, I mean, it's wrong. And unfortunately,
can you defund his salary, Jamie?
We could, but we don't have 218 votes. And I voted to. There was an amendment on the last spending bill, and it's called the Hallman Rule. It lowers the salary to $1. I voted for that. I think it got 200 and some votes, but it didn't get 218 votes.
Wow.
Because there were the Republicans that wouldn't vote for it. Jim Jordan and I met with Tom Cole. We've sent Tom Cole letters, the new chairman of the Appropriation Committee. He wasn't chairman the last budget. It was Kay Granger. She had no interest in doing any of that. We've pleaded and begged with Tom Cole to make cuts. We've got to hold people in the Department of Justice accountable. And the only way they're going to listen is if we don't exercise our power of the purse. So Jordan and I are making the case as we speak when we go with this new budget that looks like we're going to vote on in September.
It is James Comer, District 1 Republican, great state of Kentucky, the House Oversight Committee chair. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Now, I know as we see her on July 29th doing this interview that the presumptive nominee for the Democrats is Joe Biden. He got 14.5 million votes. You can't just take away the votes and disenfranchise 14.5 million people. By the way, I'm not sure how he got 14.5 million, but he got 81 million in 20. We'll talk about that next time. But 14.5 million people have been told the Democratic way that you went and voted doesn't count. It doesn't matter. We're going to Queen Kamala Harris. She's now the nominee. Well, Jamie, you and I both know that she's not the nominee, yet she's now calling out Donald Trump as if he agreed to a debate with her, which he hasn't. The one thing I think that we did wrong on our side was allowing for a debate before any conventions happened, because now Donald Trump, James Comer, and Joe Pags, people who believe like we believe, are helping the Democrats select the person who has the best chance of winning. It doesn't make any sense. Why would Trump ever debate Kamala Harris now in September, knowing that she is not the presumptive nominee nor the nominee at all at this point? Am I right that she's not the nominee at all yet, right now?
She's not the nominee. I mean, who's the threat to democracy here? Just a group of 2 or 3 people, Obama, Hillary Clinton, whomever, saying, no, we think Kamala Harris should be the Democrat nominee. We don't care what the 14 million people who voted for Joe Biden. Yeah, you all don't matter. We're the elitists. We make the decision in this smoke-filled room. That is the threat to democracy.
Yes.
When you go against the will of 14 million people and put whoever you want, a hand-selected candidate from the 2 or 3 Democrat elite, that's the threat to democracy, not Donald Trump, the Democrat Party. And I think that every American needs to understand that. The real threat to democracy is what they're doing to try to put Kamala Harris, because I do not think Kamala Harris would have won a competitive primary. I do not think Kamala Harris would have beaten Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer.
Agreed.
I just don't believe it.
Well, she got 1.9% of the vote or something when she ran in 2020. Right. She's never won a delegate ever. The one guy, Phillips, has, what's his name, Dean Phillips? He's got 3. He's got 3 more delegates than the presumptive nominee, which doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about Harris and her being the border czar, which she is. She has been since March of 2021. Joe Biden put her in charge of the border. In fact, you guys passed some legislation the next year calling her the border czar and calling her out for how badly she's done the job. Jamie, can she walk away from how badly she's handled the border? She's claiming she never was the border czar. What do you mean?
I mean, that's, I'm just intrigued by how the mainstream media follows orders. I mean, you got 2 or 3 Democrats that can handpick the Democrat nominee for president, and they can demand that the press write whatever they want. When they turned on Joe Biden, all these media outlets that had defended Joe Biden for years and attacked me for insinuating that Joe Biden was old and dishonest and unelectable, then they started quoting me, like, I mean, look, this is what Republicans are going to say, instead of saying the Republicans are liars or conspiracy theorists and all that, they do what they're told. And they were told to now say, okay, the one Achilles heel with respect to Kamala Harris in their mind is the fact that the Republicans have said she's the border czar. Joe Biden said she was his border czar. He named her border czar at a press conference, if I remember correctly. Yeah. She has been the border czar for the entire administration. And the border is the worst issue of all the bad issues, inflation, crime, all the bad issues the Democrats have. The absolute worst issue is what they've done at the southern border. It offends every working American, even if you're a liberal Democrat. So now they're trying to reverse history and say, no, the Republicans are making this up. Just like they would do me every day when we would show the bank records of these LLCs, these fake companies the Bidens would form, and the actual transfers, the bank statements where they were receiving tens of millions of dollars from our enemies around the world, the media would say, no, that's not true. That's not true. Now they're saying, no, that's not true. She was never the border czar. When everyone knows she's been the border czar for the past 2 years.
Well, not only that, you know who named her the border czar? I mean, Biden, I don't think he said the words border czar, but he put her in charge of the border. Then she went to Guatemala and talked about how she's in charge of the border and told people not to come. You know who named her that? Axios, far left-wing media, and the AP, the Associated Press. They named her that. And now they're the ones in the front saying, she was never the border czar. You named her that. So she doesn't get away with that. But here's what they're trying, Jamie, and this bothers me. In Texas, I sit in Texas. I got 170 stations everywhere else, but I'm in Texas. We know the border is broken, but the Biden administration is lying, and they're saying the numbers are lower than they were when they took office. You and I both know they're gaming the system by putting people on parole and putting people in the asylum program before they get to the border, so when they cross, they're not counting them as illegal. So how do you counterbalance that?
Yeah, look, they've let millions and millions and millions of people across this border. And with those caravans, came criminals, came terrorists, came rapists, came carjackers, disease, human trafficking.
But they're lying about the numbers, and the media, as you said, the media is complicit. How do we beat that? Because they own everything: academia, media, sports, music, everything, the Olympics.
I mean, I didn't know the media was as bad as they were until I led this Biden investigation. I mean, they absolutely lie. You mentioned the Associated Press. I would trust the National Enquirer any day more than the Associated Press. If the National Enquirer has an alien and Elvis talking, that is more believable to me than anything they say about Kamala Harris.
I love it.
So I think the Associated Press has no credibility. And I think the American people see that because you look at the viewership, the ratings, the number of subscriptions, they're deteriorating. People are getting their news from podcasts. They're getting their news from social media. They're finding sources they trust and getting news from there. Yeah. And it's unfortunate what's happened to the mainstream media, but I believe that their influence is continuing to lag.
House Oversight Committee Chair, I know you've got another interview to do. Jamie, one last question. How weird was it that you and Raskin and AOC and Moskowitz and Anna Paulina Luna, you guys all agreed when it came to Kim Cheadle? Was that just a weird day?
It was a weird day because Raskin and I do not like each other. No, listen, that's not phony. You know, sometimes you see these
somebody needs therapy, right? It's about therapy.
And they go have a drink afterwards. We really don't like each other. He's been, one of the most dishonest members of Congress that I've encountered in 8 years. So for us to agree on something says how bad Kimberly Cheadle and the Secret Service currently are.
Representative Comer, I can't thank you enough for the work you do for the country and for Kentucky. Thanks a lot for coming on today. Let's do it again soon, okay?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
you. We're back after this. Stay right here.